Hey everybody, it's Brock, and today we got a brand new episode of All About. We're doing another episode of the top 5 fish, but this time we're moving up some. We're moving up to the 30-gallon tank, a very popular size in the hobby. Now in a 30-gallon tank, you can enjoy any of the previous 5 fish from the 15-gallon tank video, as well as some new choices that you'll see in this video. A typical setup for a 30-gallon tank is at least a 1-inch sand bed with a live rock structure, including a few pieces on the bottom to stabilize some tall standing bridges or ledges for the fish to have caves and hiding spots to roam around in. You got a much more spacious tank with going up to a 30-gallon. You get a little bit more length, so you have a better area to do a cooler rock structure. 30-gallon tank is typically 36 inches in length, 12 inches in width, and 18 inches in height. Most have a rectangular shape, so you're usually dealing with a longer, slender tank, but also you have the very popular biocubes that tend to have a rounded cube shape as it gets its name. Those tend to have filtration built into the back, which can be a big convenience if you're wanting to make sure to have all the room just for your rock structures instead of having that big old hang on the back filter that can take up a lot of space. Now that we have a good picture of what the tank looks like, let's go over each fish that I'd recommend in this size aquarium. I'm going to list a few pros and cons for each fish that we go through. That way you can have a good idea of what works for you and your tank. For number 1, we have the Royal Grama. Now these guys have some absolute crazy good colorations on them. Very bright purple, very bright yellow. Split right in half on them. If you're from Louisiana, this is the LSU fish right here. They're great for smaller tanks as they do not get entirely too large. They can be a great fish for the reefs as it will not pick at any of your corals or inverts. And it's also really, really good for beginners as typically they are captive bred now, and they are just a very hardy fish that can be quick to get eating on food. And whether it's pellets, flakes, frozen food, they'll pretty much eat any of it. One of the main concerns with them, though, is they are known to get territorial once accustomed to the tank, especially their own kind. So you want to make sure if you're putting one of these in a 30-gallon, he is the only Royal Grama going in. The second one I'd like to recommend is the Line Wrasse. So with a bigger tank, you can start to get newer fish like the Wrasse family. These 6 lines are really fun. They're very, very hyper. They're constantly swimming back and forth throughout the rocks, into the caverns, into these tiny little spaces you wouldn't even think they could fit in. Always looking for something, and their eyes move separately. So it's like staring at a praying mantis going around the tank. It is a wild sight. These wrasse are great for going after pests in the tanks like bristleworms, vermitid snails, any other unwanted pests that are very popular to beginners that are just starting out. Those creatures definitely will come out in the first month that you have your tank, so it's always good to have a fish in there that'll take care of them for you and keep them under control. They're very peaceful towards most fish and will not get aggressive towards their territory that they take over. However, they will need to be the only wrasse in a tank this size because they can be very aggressive towards other wrasse in this size of aquarium. Another thing you'll want to watch out for is they can go after other inverts at times. We've had cases where crabs, anemones, and even clams were known to get picked at by them. Our third one is the Lawnmower Benny. Now these guys are a lot of fun to watch. They have a very unique swimming pattern that they do where they swim like an eel to one side of the rock to the other, and then they'll perch up and just hang out for the rest of the day. They have this camouflage black, grays, browns coloration on their skin that can sometimes make them even hard to find. They love eating hair algae and constantly grazing on the rocks for any food they can find. You'll see they look like a little cow just running around on them rocks, constantly picking at them, trying to get that algae off of the rocks. So if you are someone that is having algae problems on your rocks, it's a great one to get in there, and he can help clean that stuff up. Now, like I said, they have a very fun personality as they will perch on top of the rocks, bounce around on the ledges, and they can be very, very hardy and easy to get to eat fish for beginners. Some cons for them: they are prone to jumping out of the tank. They are very bad about doing it, especially at the beginning when taking care of them. So make sure you have a glass lid and just any kind of coverings in all spots of the tanks, because I can promise you they will find that little bitty crack to get out of. Another thing with the Lawnmower Benny is they usually will require a more established tank, as they tend to thrive on natural sources of food like that hair algae and different kinds of algae that grows on the rock, and even around the tank like rotten matter in the substrate. They love eating that. So I would typically not have this be your very first fish going into a spotless brand new tank. Give it about 6 months and then this would be a really good one to get. Now, number 4 is a really cool fish. This is the blue spotted jawfish. They have a very unique personality, and the way they live in the tank is super cool. They tend to dig out a cavern deep enough that they can hide themselves completely in, but also be able to poke their heads out looking for food, just hanging out, looking at you. You'll see them as you walk up to the tank, they'll dart back into their hole, and then once they feel comfortable, you'll see them slender back out to take a look. Another really fun thing is whenever feeding them, you feed them things like pellets or things that are going to float down, you can see him dart out and grab the food, and then he'll immediately dart back into his cave without messing up any of the sand. I mean, it is a wild sight. They have super good precision. They're also quick to eat, relatively hardy, with some specifics to their tank setting. With cons, they are very territorial over their hole. They will lunge after fish or inverts that get near it. Sometimes they'll even spit sand at them. There's a bunch of videos out there where you see these just sand wars going on, where one fish is spitting sand at him and he's spitting sand right back at him. They will require some more specifics to the tank, one being a deeper sand bed than typically required. Usually, you have a 1-inch sand bed. For this guy, I'd probably try to bring it up to about 3 inches. That'll give him plenty of room to dig down in, and then have plenty of room covering his body so he can stick his head back up. Another really important thing is they are thriving in cold water. So typically where you have that higher 70-degree tank, these guys really do better in 60 to 70 degrees temperature in the water. So make sure you have that temperature set. Sometimes it does take a chiller depending on where you live or where the tank's set up in your house. So keep that in mind whenever getting one of these. Now, the 5th and the last one I'm going to recommend is the spotted Mandarin dragonet. These guys are really, really cool. They're very peaceful towards any and all fish, even inverts. They're a great reef fish to have as well. They will not harm any of your corals. The worst thing they could do is maybe perch on top of them as they hop around. They have very beautiful colorations on them. A very fun personality, watching them bounce to and fro from the sand bed, around the rocks, sneaking back to the back looking for copepods. Just overall, a really, really cool fish to have in your tank. They are much more difficult to take care of than a typical fish. I would not recommend this one to beginners because they're going to require a never-ending supply of pods. So that can either be some that you buy in the bottle and you're dosing directly into the tank to feed them every month, or if you start to raise those copepods in your tank, whether it's in your refugium, down in your sump, or in a little container inside the tank, whatever it may be, he needs those very, very much to survive in the tank because that's their natural food source. And in very, very slim cases of them actually eating some live food from you, other than that, they're going to be looking for those pods around in the tank. You'll see them hopping from the rocks, picking their little heads into the holes, looking for those copepods. Now, I'm not saying they can't be trained on live food, but I am saying at the beginning at least, you need to have plenty of pods in there, a good established reef for him to swim around in. They also are not a hardy fish. Any spikes or mishaps in the tank, this fish would be one of the first ones to perish. So make sure your water levels are pristine, make sure you're dosing everything correctly, and you just have a really, really clean, established tank for them. So if you're looking for that next fish that kind of takes you to the next level on taking care of something that isn't just super beginner hardy fish, the spotted mandarins can be really fun, and they kind of open you up to some new things in the hobby. After that, that gets you a good top 5 on what I would recommend in a 30-gallon tank. Now, of course, mix it up, add some, take some away, put some new ones in there. These are just some really good suggestions that whenever someone asks me, you know, what would you put in that tank, Brock? These are some really cool ones that'll add some color and some great personality to your tank. Thanks everyone for coming by to watch this brand new episode of All About. If you have another fish in this tank of this size, please leave it down in the comments and let us know how it does in there. Also, if you have any additional questions, you can leave a comment or reach out to me on social media. I'm always down to talk. My links are always in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all later.